This is WEFT Champaign, 90.1 FM, community radio for East Central Illinois. Streaming live at www.weft.org. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Weekend Heartbeat, a series of shows that represent a collective effort to bring the thoughts and actions of people working in the nonprofit arena to the forefront, where it needs to be. Join us each Saturday at this time to enjoy a different episode in this series. Upcoming shows will include Joy George, the first Saturday of each month, hosting Peace Talks Radio, which talks about the personal conflicts we face every day and ways we can effectively deal with these challenges. Also in this series is Doug Olive, the third Saturday of each month, who will be hosting Speaking of Democracy, which takes a look at political theory and its sociology. Another in this series is Pause Radio on the fourth Saturday of each month, which is an informative program on the care and well-being of our companion animals. Today's show, A New Lamp, features Marilyn Rickey and Sean David, who will be bringing an informative light to the Baha'i faith and its philosophy. The views and opinions expressed here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent those of WFT, its board of directors, associates, its station manager, or Prairie Air Incorporated. The following program is pre-recorded and consists of two parts. The first part was recorded in 2011. The second part was recorded on January 1st, 2016. Welcome to Weekend Heartbeat. I'm Sean David, and this is A New Lamp.
New lamp for old, new lamp for old. Remember how Aladdin headed out to get oil for his mother's old dented, tarnished lamp? And in the market he met a magician calling out these words. This strange man was offering to give him a brand new shiny lamp for his old one. That's what I want to offer you, if you'll have it. A new lamp of spiritual guidance. But maybe you already have such a lamp, which still burns brightly. Great. You are still welcome to join us simply to learn who we are. But maybe your lamp of divine guidance has gotten dented and tarnished like Aladdin's. Or perhaps you have no such lamp at all. To you, I offer a new lamp. Hi, my name is Marilyn. Welcome to A New Lamp, a program designed to make you acquainted with the Baha'i religious faith. I hope you will choose to spend the next few minutes with me. Thanks.
Where the can a lover go to the land of his beloved? And what seeker findeth rest away from his heart's desire? To the true lover, reunion is life. To the true lover, separation is death. His breast is void of patience, and his heart hath no peace. His breast is void of patience, and his heart hath no peace. Our myriad lives he would forsake sin a myriad lives, he would forsake to hasten to the abode of his beloved.
At the time and place Baha'u'llah lived, his laws regarding marriage and divorce were quite radical. At that time, wealthy men had harems and children by the dozens. Women's rights were negligible, and a man could easily divorce her. Can you imagine the household struggles with jealousy among the women and their children? We saw such problems among Old Testament patriarchs. Can you imagine a man being told he can have but one wife? Well, here it is, monogamy. Because there is no way any man can keep harmony and fairness any other way. Marriage is encouraged, but not obligatory. There are no prohibitions against marriage between the races or with non-Baha'is. The age of maturity for Baha'is is 15 years, and marriage may be contracted any time after that age has been reached. Marriage is not arranged, but determined by the affection between the individuals themselves on condition that it is approved by both sets of parents. This law applies no matter the age of the bride and groom. The purpose of this law is to prevent rancor and enmity and to preserve unity. The main purpose of marriage is to develop a family, and couples are encouraged to have children. Once the decision to wed has been made, the wedding must take place within 95 days. The marriage ceremony is simple. As we have no clergy, the recitation by both parties is said to this effect: "We will all, verily, abide by the will of God." The couple may choose to add to the ceremony appropriate readings and music. These marriages are legal, this matter having been tended years ago. The laws of Baha'u'llah place much emphasis on the consideration of the husband toward his wife. For example, he is not to leave her without telling her how long he will be gone. If he abandons her, she may remarry in 9 months. Also such things as financial matters, equitable legalities, and general respect and thoughtfulness. Baha'u'llah has said, "Truly the Lord loveth union and harmony, and abhorreth separation and divorce. Live ye one with another, O people, in radiance and joy. Compose your differences, O my servants." So divorce is strongly discouraged, but if things come to pass that the parties become estranged and want to divorce, they must wait separately 1 year of patience before this can take place. Neither husband or wife may take another mate during this time. Perhaps reconciliation will take place. Now on to the matters of funerals. The body, no matter what its condition, is to be treated with respect. It has been the temple for the soul during its earthly life. Burial in a good casket is prescribed. Cremation is not allowed. The body is not to be embalmed, but washed and shrouded in silk or fine cotton. A burial ring is placed on the finger, which says in effect, "I came forth from God, and unto him I return." Burial should take place within 24 hours if possible, and the body entombed within 1 hour's travel time from the place of death. The prayer for the dead is said just prior to interment. Death is not to be feared. As our life in the womb prepared us for life on this earth, so has our sojourn here prepared us for a beautiful unknown, the all-glorious Appa Kingdom.
I'm gonna thank you for my journey.
O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom? Baha'u'llah. Thanks so much for being with me this morning. I hope you have found a blessing during these few minutes. If you want to learn more about the Baha'i religion, you can go online to www.bahai.us. To contact me, my email address is anewlamp@yahoo.com. Thanks, and have a great day. Welcome to the first New Lamp program for this new year, 2016. We are pleased to have as our guests today Nora and Taman Green, Baha'is from Danville. Welcome to you both.
Oh, thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Nora. Hey, Taman.
Hey.
Hi, Sean.
We don't get to see you folks too often, so we're pleased that you were willing to come this distance to be with us today. We'd like our listeners to know a little bit about our guests. So how about each of you giving us just a little biography, such as family background, schooling, work, whatever you think that the folks might be interested in knowing about you. Nora, would you like to start?
Sure. I was raised in the suburbs of Chicago. My parents were both teachers. I was raised Catholic. Big Catholic family. Went to the University of Illinois, so have lived in Champaign-Urbana for many years, and now we've been in Danville for 10 years. And I used to teach in Oakwood. So I really like the central Illinois area. It's been home for a long time.
What age level were you teaching?
I taught 8th grade history. And then I went back to school and got a master's in public health from Northern Illinois University.
Wow.
But came back to Danville. So.
Okay. Great.
I worked in drug treatment for several years, done a lot of grant writing and youth development.
Okay. You've been a busy lady. How about you, Taman?
To give you a little family background, my great-grandfather was a sharecropper in Mississippi back in the 50s, and like a lot of families at that time migrated to Chicago and eventually settled in the west side of Chicago. And so I'm originally from the west side of Chicago, west suburbs of Chicago. I have a master's in English education from Northern Illinois University, and I teach high school English in Georgetown, which is a small town just outside of Danville.
Oh, I was going to say, I've not been in this general area long enough I didn't know where Georgetown was. So. Okay, so basically you guys were both in Chicago. Is that where you met then?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. We both attended U of I, lived in the Urbana-Champaign area, very nearby each other, didn't meet down here. Both of us moved back up to Chicagoland area, and that's where we met.
Isn't that interesting? Always neat to hear where people met.
Yeah, and then we moved back down here. We've been married for 13 years. So.
That's great. So, we have found it interesting that as we speak to different Baha'is, there are so many variations in our Baha'i histories. Sean has been a Baha'i like forever, and I didn't find the faith until I was 70 years old. What is your Baha'i history? Either one of you.
I was raised Catholic.
Right.
And found that I loved Christ's teachings,
Mm-hmm.
but struggled with there were no female priests,
Mm-hmm.
among other things. And then I actually was an atheist for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a foster parent in my early 20s while living in Champaign. And when you become a foster parent at a young age of teenagers, you find yourself doing a lot of praying. And so I was praying to hopefully God. And at that point, I realized that I needed to find a faith that I felt comfortable raising a child in. That's what began my search. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, except that I felt that it was very important to raise a child with a clear sense of being a spiritual person and bringing good to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many kids that end up in the foster care system are there because of misguided priorities.
Yes.
And mistakes often lead to addiction, and addiction leads to a parent being unable to parent. So
Right.
that's what drew me to looking for a faith to raise a child in. So I actually told friends I was church shopping, but I didn't set foot in any church. Instead, I found myself at Barnes & Noble bookstore by Marketplace Mall and was looking on the shelves, and I had never heard of the Baha'i Faith, and I found a book, Introduction
Really?
to the Baha'i Faith by Joseph Shepard.
Wow.
And I sat down and I read. It's very short, you know, which when you're working full time and you have foster children, you don't have much time. So luckily, Introduction to the Baha'i Faith by Joseph Shepard was very short, maybe 60 pages. And I think I read the whole thing cover to cover that night. And at that point, I pretty quickly realized that the same voice that I heard in church, that voice of God through Christ, was the same voice that I recognized in the prayers and the writings in the book.
Yes.
And that led me to read more, find more. And eventually that led me to the Urbana Baha'i Center. I was surprised that there were real people in Urbana that were Baha'i. And so this book that was on the shelf at Barnes & Noble's led me to real human beings. And so that was my journey. And it still took several years after that. I was reluctant to be a member of something, having been an atheist for several years. But I eventually realized that progress, to have true progress, and God's intention is for human beings to progress, we have to be united in our vision of what that progress is to be. And so I did reach the point after some divine intervention that I became a Baha'i. So, and that's been 14, 15 years ago now.
That's wonderful. You know, I suspicion that a lot of people, whatever their faith, it's like they get into the teen years, the early 20s, and tend to start questioning their faith. But when these children come along, it's all of a sudden, how do we want to raise these children? These children are important. And I think a lot of people start taking a second look at what they believe at that point.
Right.
Come on.
Well, my family's Baptist, and when I got to college, I started to have an ongoing investigation of just philosophy and religion. I just wanted to know. Uh, I think maybe I had the idea that when I had a child that I wanted to be a father who was knowledgeable and could pass on that knowledge to my kids. That, when they had questions, they could come to me and I would have some answers. So, you know, uh, I did a lot of, research, and I went to a lot of churches and, mosques and and what have you, and I read, the Bible all the way through, the Quran all the way through. And I found myself at Eastern Illinois University, and I was in the stacks when you can go there, and I found a little book called Wine of Astonishment by Bill Sears, and he used to be a radio personality and became a hand of the cause.
Right.
And I read that book, and it was about it was fictional, a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim having lunch in Israel, discussing their different perspectives, and a Baha'i having a discussion about their different perspectives. And I found that the Baha'i had the same answers I had came up with, and went even further. And so I was like, oh, I need to investigate this a little bit. And so I started pulling out old dusty books with Arabic on the covers, and people were like, "What is that for a class?" No, this is enjoyment.
What's wrong with this man?
Right. And so after graduation, I did not encounter any Baha'is while I was in Charleston. And after graduating, I moved back to Urbana area and connected with the Baha'is here. So,
Wow.
and became a Baha'i in '99, beginning of '99.
So
Actually, it was Valentine's Day of '99. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah, most of us
coincidental-
remember our anniversary, Baha'i anniversary dates, don't we? So you each became Baha'i on your own before you met.
I had not yet become a Baha'i.
Okay.
The same year that Taman moved back to Urbana, that year I had already moved to Chicago. So I had been to the Baha'i Center and met a number of Baha'is, came here several times, went to some great potlucks, and then I moved to Chicago. So then when he moved back to Urbana, we never met. So what's interesting is when we planned our wedding, we knew the same people from the Urbana Baha'i Center, but never met them together.
It sounds like you were just crisscrossing.
We
Yes.
decided that we have an arranged marriage, and God has a sense of humor. So when we met in the Chicago area, Taman was back in school to become a teacher. He already had his bachelor's and was working towards his master's degree.
Okay.
I was working full-time at the time, and I had not yet become a Baha'i, but I had already decided that if there was any religion or faith that I was going to become or join, it was the Baha'i faith. I just hadn't made that final commitment. So
Yeah.
when I met Taman, he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Baha'i. Do you know what that is?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do," which shocked him, I might add, because the Baha'i faith today is where Christianity was, 200 years after Christ's death.
Right.
So we are small but mighty and growing, but emphasis on small right now. So it was a shock to him that not only did I know what the Baha'i faith was, but I'd read several of the writings, was very familiar with it, and we attended Aurora had a Baha'i school on Sundays
Okay.
in the home of a couple that was an American
Persian.
he was an American engineer and worked in telecommunications, and she was from Iran originally, and
Okay.
had emigrated here with her family. So they hosted Baha'i school and really great dinners with Persian food. And that's where I think it was maybe a month after we got married where I signed the declaration and officially was a member of the Baha'i faith.
Wow, that's great.
So the process of becoming a Baha'i is an interesting one if you're not a Baha'i, which I wasn't a Baha'i. So I was really kind of, well, how do I do this? And I'm at Baha'i school, and it was a Sunday. I said, Carl, I want to become a Baha'i today. Well, he said, oh, and he disappeared.
You were expected to be baptized or something?
I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't expect him to disappear. So he had gone upstairs, and he'd gotten their small cards. They look like a business card. And he brought them downstairs, and he handed me the card, and he said, by the way, this is a Bill Sears card. So he had met Bill Sears, who in the Baha'i faith would be very similar to perhaps, I think, in Catholic terms. So you'll have to help me out here, but
a saint?
It would be the equivalent of perhaps something similar
a bishop
to
or
a bishop.
something. Yeah.
Right, or a cardinal.
Right.
So
A
someone
learned person.
Yeah, so the funny story behind this is the second book I read about the Baha'i faith was God Loves Laughter by Bill Sears. And I had taken the book with me to the train station in Chicago, and I was reading God Loves Laughter by Bill Sears and struggling with becoming a Baha'i, considering my past history. And a young man sat down next to me, and he said, excuse me, what are you reading? And I said, God Loves Laughter by Bill Sears. And he showed me his book, which was Wine of Astonishment.
Oh,
no. And I just started laughing because, Chicago's 11 million some odd people.
Yes,
And I had just had the thought, I really believe that I'm hearing the voice of God, that this is that same voice that I heard in church.
Yes.
And that the message is what the world needs for today. But I'm just not sure. I mean,
you want clarity?
You question it. In our culture, you question everything and re-question it, and so so I could not help but do a lot of laughing that God had put me on a bench with a young man who was reading Wine of Astonishment by Bill Sears, which was the first book that Taman had read. And Taman had given me that book to read along with a friend of ours. They both sort of jointly gave me the book to read. So that's my funny story. So at Baha'i school, at Baha'i school, he brought me the card to sign, and he didn't know the story. And he handed me this little card to sign. He said, oh, by the way, I met Bill Sears in person. And he gave me these cards, and this is the first one I'm giving to someone to sign. And so that was my confirmation from the Holy Spirit that this was indeed a faith from heaven. And I had no more qualms about signing anything. I haven't had any since, I might add. So.
Oh, isn't that a neat story? Both of you were drawn in by Bill Sears, and then that whole thing, that confirmation.
And our arranged marriage.
yeah.
Not literally, mind you, but
right.
Spiritually, it seems
spiritually
to have been arranged.
Or spiritually prearranged, yeah.
Oh, that is just really neat. I just love to hear these stories that people tell us about how they became Baha'is. So you folks are a mixed couple. Has that ever been a problem for you, or have you been accepted pretty well in that?
No, it's not been a problem.
Well, except that my parents didn't want us to get married.
Well,
a slight problem.
Well, I knew there might be a slight hiccup there, but I thought it was going to be something that could be eventually overcome.
It
was. Was.
My parents were worried. I mean, they loved Taman. They were not concerned about him being black and me being white. It helped that he's an English teacher, and of course, my parents were teachers.
Right.
But they were born in the 1920s.
Guess who's coming for dinner? Huh?
Yes, that's exactly what my mother said. Guess who's coming to dinner? And they were concerned that we would have problems.
Yes.
So initially they said, no, please don't get married. And I was very upset.
Mm-hmm.
Timon said, have faith, have some patience. And I'd say about 3 weeks later, they changed their minds and supported the marriage. So
my parents were concerned also, being from Mississippi themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There's some history there of intolerance, and they were concerned, but they figure out I knew what I was doing. Or I figure it out.
Yeah. I know as a parent that would be my concern is what kind of trouble are you walking into? What kind of problems are your children going to face? But apparently, once you got past that parental hurdle, it was okay.
Right. We really haven't had any issues. I think maybe a look here and there, maybe, but no real issues. I think Danville was the perfect place for us to settle down in because, I mean, it's amazing how many mixed children, mixed couples are in Danville. Danville has been integrated for quite some time now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not unusual.
It's becoming much more acceptable.
Right.
That's great.
You would think since it's 2016 now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you folks have done a lot of working with young people and children, right? Both as teachers and in your private lives. You want to talk to us a little bit about this and how your Baha'i faith has inspired and impacted this type of work?
When we were in Aurora, we had been through the core activities such as all the Ruhi books at the time and worked with the junior youth, and we kind of referred to our time there as Baha'i Boot Camp.
Okay.
Finally, because I mean we were really immersed and it was great. I mean we were the teachers on Sunday. We were the junior youth coordinators there, and then we also did Heartland Summer School teachers. We were Heartland Summer School teachers, so we had a lot of experience working with kids, early on. And I mean, in teaching, you learn whatever concept even more in depthly. So
sure.
It was a great way to learn too.
I started working with kids right after college. I had a good friend of mine in high school. We were freshmen, and she actually ran away from home due to being abused and was murdered the next day.
Oh my gosh.
So it had a huge impact on, all of us because we'd gone through grade school together.
Mm-hmm.
And she was brilliant. She was brilliant. In fact, at the time she ran away, she was a straight A student. She'd packed all her homework to do.
In spite of her bad family background.
Instead of, her mom was a single parent, and I think just frustrated
Mm-hmm.
By a lot of stress
Sure.
that was going on. When I graduated from college, my first husband and I, who has since passed away from cancer, we decided to become foster parents. And a lot of that motivation was realizing that my friend at the time needed somewhere safe to go, and there wasn't a place she could go. So we were very young. We'd just gotten married, and we were given a teenage foster son.
Ah.
Which is what I mentioned, I think, earlier about praying.
Yes, not that
Lots
much
of
younger than
prayers.
yourself.
No, lots of prayers. And it, finding the Baha'i faith gave the spiritual support that's needed in working with today's kids. Because when you work in drug treatment, what becomes very apparent is that addiction to alcohol and addiction to drugs is far more likely to happen when someone has had a difficult childhood. And it's also harder for that person to recover from addiction when they have had a very stressful and difficult childhood and are dealing with a lot of grief and loss. And so what the Baha'i faith helped me to do was Baha'u'llah's message that alcohol is just a chemical, but us human beings, were not designed to handle it safely. And we're also not meant to do drugs. It affects us spiritually. In addition to the addictive aspect of them, it changes who we are. It prevents us from growing and developing, and we can be maybe 25 years old chronologically, but if we've been addicted to drugs since 15, we're really stuck at 15. And so I think being a part of a faith and feeling confident that God's teachings speak to today's needs and that alcohol and drugs are not okay, that was very helpful to me. Because when you're trying to help a child navigate becoming an adult in today's culture, if it's gray, well, you can drink, but just don't let it become a problem. Well, maybe, some drugs shouldn't be illegal, for example. Some drugs aren't that bad, so just be careful.
Right. And with the...
We are biological beings.
Yes.
I mean, that's our reality. We're biological beings. And that's a risky proposition. And we've been a cultural experiment. And the cultural experiment has resulted in thousands upon thousands of children coming into the foster care system. And the grief and the loss that they face from losing their family, it's not fixable. And it never goes away. And so finding the Baha'i faith, it solidified for me that it's okay to have a message for children that says you can be a part of the world. You can have friends and be friendly, and you can achieve your goals, but it's also 100% okay not to participate and do the things that are currently common in our culture, very counterproductive to your own personal growth and development. And ultimately are very risky for your entire life.
And others.
Right. And like I said, it creates this gray when we have states that are legalizing some of these things, and adults are doing them so openly. Yes, how are children to get examples? And I know there's a situation that was in my family that turned out tragically with alcohol and drugs, and yes, it's one of these things we really can't compromise with, to say to somebody, oh, you maybe just take an occasional drink. Well, maybe you happen to be the person whose body literally cannot handle the first drink, let alone the second or third drink.
And I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, and so it was helpful finding spiritual teachings that helped solidify my own personal detachment from our current alcohol and drug culture, but then also in working with youth.
Yes.
There are a lot of kids who they're not comfortable with it. They really don't necessarily want to do it, but when everybody's doing it, it seems like the thing to do. And so when you're, as an adult, when you can say, I'm a fun person to be around, I have a good time, we have a good life, we do interesting things, but we're also adults who don't drink or use drugs, that's huge for kids.
Absolutely.
Because we're predictable. We are, Tamana and I, in working with kids we've worked with, even with our own son, and we're very predictable because we're always the same people.
Right.
When you add in drugs or alcohol, then a child gets very inconsistent parenting and inconsistent messages, and one day things are, you can go ahead and do it, it's permitted, and the next day it's not permitted, and maybe the parent doesn't even necessarily remember what they allow their child to do the day before. So consistent parents, available and reliable, because even parents that are addicted to alcohol and drugs love their kids, but the chemical makes good parenting an impossibility.
Right.
And so knowing that there's some youth that we've worked with who won't have to fight that battle is a blessing.
Yes.
And they in turn are gonna, be examples in their neighborhoods and in their families that, hey, I can have a great life and do wonderful, awesome things and have friends and have a good time, but I don't have to partake necessarily.
And I think getting through the peer pressure time,
Right.
and knowing that they've got the support of parents who are able to help them through that time.
Right. It was life-changing. I think finding the Baha'i faith was life-changing in so many ways, but it's also enabled us to really help some kids who were at a crossroads and at a turning point in their life, and they could have gone down a path of addiction or dealing, and instead they've gone down a path of not using, not drinking, not being addicted, and have jobs and are going to college. And so that's the blessing of faith and spirituality, is it's transformative. It's personally transformative, and then it also transforms neighborhoods, families, ultimately the world.
Yes. One person at a time. And my goodness, that must have been so satisfying for you to see these young people growing up to be stable and emotionally, mentally healthy. That's wonderful.
And they're going to be good parents.
Yes.
That's the neat part of it, is seeing that cycle's broken.
I guess that'd be a good way to put it, just because it is cyclic. You certainly go through one generation after another unless there is something specific to cut that off. Right. Did you have something, John?
Well, just that it kind of resonates with me. In the Army, it seemed like everybody drank, and it just was like the thing that you did that you didn't even think about. And so being someone in the Army who didn't drink, I kind of, that reaction of not just, well, why don't you want to drink, but it's just, you can not drink. That's a thing. It was very surprising for a lot of people to even have that presented to them as an option. So when I think about, the kids I grew up with too, with parents, when sort of the similar situations that you just described, that just resonates with me. It's like just presenting it as an option can make such a huge difference.
Yes. And more, it just seems like our whole society anymore, drink is always a part of everything. And it's, distressing, whether it's watching a food program on TV or just, there's always something that's being taken in that is not healthy.
The music, the all society.
Yeah.
So, are you working with any particular youth groups at this time?
We're not. We have a 2-year-old son.
That's a youth group right there.
Youth group.
Yes.
We used to have we had a
4-H.
4-H club for a while, so we've taken a break, and when he's a little bit older, I'm sure we will be back doing more things with kids.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the 4-H group was like?
I was in 4-H when I was a kid, even though I grew up in a Chicago suburb. You can do quite a lot with 4-H, absent farm.
I was too for a little time.
And so we, when we first moved to Danville, we noticed that there were quite a few kids in the neighborhood that were very bored, particularly some boys who had, were launching rocks from one side of the street to the other because they apparently could not think of anything else to do.
The heights of boredom.
Yes. So I said to Taman, I said, we have to do something. And that desire to do something for the bored kids on the block resulted in a 4-H club. The kids, we met maybe a couple times a month. And what was really neat was watching the kids learn to set goals and to reach those goals. Some of them were siblings. So if you can imagine 12 kids at a table and their siblings, and they're supposed to plan a winter party together. As most people have siblings or cousins, the idea of kids being able to effectively plan anything without hurting each other can be a stretch. And so one of the key aspects of the Baha'i faith is the process of consultation, and that it's imperative for us people to learn how to consult with each other and not insult each other.
That's a good way to put it.
And so 4-H actually teaches kids how to do the process of consultation, and reach decisions and follow through on those decisions. And so we help the kids learn that process, and they learned it and they mastered it, and I don't know about mastered it, but they got exponentially better at it. And they had fun. I mean, they hosted a winter party for the block. They did some projects. We did tons of baking.
Sure.
One of the young women became an expert at cupcakes and muffins. And she is now a junior at Southern Illinois University and wants to be a teacher. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And that teaching consultation, that's something they will have all their lives.
Right. They will have that all their lives. That, especially the aspect in the Baha'i faith that it's okay if your idea is not embraced by the group. The purpose is to have a unified vision, and then you can do great things.
Right.
And so we really encourage the kids that, you had some really good ideas, and maybe next time the group will agree to do some of your ideas, but this time they didn't, and that's okay, because you're going to have a great party. And that's a hard thing for kids to handle.
Yes.
But they did. One of the key things about the Baha'i faith, any faith, it's that it's imperative for us to work with kids. They're the future.
That's right.
So it's easy today to find something on television to watch, or go, be addicted to something, even if it's just Facebook or movies or what have you. But I think if more people looked around their own neighborhoods and said, hey, I can do something for my neighborhood. I can start a youth group through any type of youth program. There's tons of them out there. 4-H, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Even going to the Boys and Girls Club and volunteering here.
Volunteering in a Boys and Girls Club. You can change. You can change the direction of some kids in your own neighborhood or board, and
sure.
Have never had that experience of being in something where they learn some skills in terms of community leadership. And that's critical today. All communities are struggling with the fact that it's not easy for kids to find jobs.
That's right.
And so it used to be if you were 15, 16, you'd find a job. And suddenly you had plenty to do. Kids today, they don't have that benefit that we had. And so if we aren't giving them direction, if we, the community, are not giving them direction and giving them meaningful things to do, then they find direction in things that are not helpful to them or the neighborhood.
Sure.
I remember one of the young men started his own landscaping company through 4-H. That was one of his projects.
Oh, really?
He had his own cars and everything. It was great. That goes back to what Nora is saying. They don't have the opportunity maybe to be employed by an employer at 15 or 16, but if you teach them how to be self-sufficient, be leaders in their own right, they can do things like that.
Right. Well, this has been great, Nora and Taman. We're going to take a look at some things that have come up at the Baha'i Center. over this next month. Let's see, every Sunday morning we have devotions at the Baha'i Center. That's at 807 East Green Street in Urbana. On the 24th of this month, those devotions will be followed by a potluck dinner and games. That's a good time for everybody of all ages. Just to come and relax. Monday evenings are the vocal workshops led by Halim Beer. And on Tuesday evening, Joan Mills leads the prayer meeting time. And there's not as much going on I don't think, right now. Sometimes we've had very busy times, but right now it seems to be a little bit quieter. I'm not aware of any firesides. Is anybody aware of anything coming up significant?
Not that I've heard, no.
Okay, well, I think that's probably everything.
But listeners can keep their eye on the website at cubaha'i.org, and anything that comes up will be promoted there.
Very good. Nora and Taman Green, we have been delighted to have you today. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for all that you do with the young people, both the Baha'i young people and the peoples in the neighborhoods, and presenting a wonderful Baha'i testimony. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yes, thank you.
Good to be here.
Okay, so we're ready to read some of the Baha'i writings. Will you folks join us in this?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay.
We're here.
In the name of the sovereign Lord, the Lord of power, glorified is he before whom all the dwellers of the earth and heaven bow down in adoration, and unto whom all men turn in supplication. He is the one who holdeth in his grasp the mighty kingdom of all created things, and unto him shall all return. He is the one who revealeth whatsoever he willeth, and by his injunction, be thou, all things have come into being.
So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. The one true God, he who knoweth all things, himself testifieth to the truth of these words. This goal excelleth every other goal, and this aspiration is the monarch of all aspirations. Baha'u'llah.
The heavenly books, the Bible, the Quran, and the other holy writings have been given by God as guides into the path of divine virtue, love, justice, and peace. Abdu'l-Baha.
Fighting and the employment of force, even for the right cause, will not bring about good results. The oppressed who have right on their side must not take the right by force. The evil would continue. Hearts must be changed. Abdu'l-Baha.
There can be no doubt whatever that the peoples of the world, of whatever race or religion, derive their inspiration from one heavenly source and are the subjects of one God. Baha'u'llah.
Music on today's program were Whither Can a Lover Go, sung by Grant Hinden Miller, and I'm Going Back to the Father, performed by the Baha'i Choir, featuring Van Gilmer, soloist. If you would like to learn more about the Baha'i community in the Champaign-Urbana area, or any of the activities we have mentioned today, you can visit our website at www.bahai.org. If you would like to learn more about the Baha'i Faith, you may go to www.bahai.us. Thank you again for joining us today. I hope you'll join us again next month. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this week's Weekend Heartbeat on WEFT Champaign 90.1 FM, Community Radio, Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, streaming live at www.weft.org.